Thank you for everybody to turning up. I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Wurundjeri people from the Kulin Nation, on which this event is being held today, and to the elders past and present. So thank you everybody for coming. Thank you to Family Daycare United for inviting us all here today and bringing us together. Family Daycare United, formerly known as Family Daycare Advocacy Association, have been around for about 5 years, but we've just recently had a resurgence, and we've come together with a group of committed, passionate, professional people that see family daycare as a quality option for our children. Family Daycare United will serve as a platform for all of you as you become members, and we're going to make sure you all do today. So we'll serve as a platform for you to contribute positively to the family daycare sector. Everybody in family daycare already, I've spoken to many of you today. We are committed to quality, flexible, affordable family daycare. Family Daycare United will achieve this by embracing their stakeholders, helping their stakeholders understand their roles and their responsibilities and the changing of the requirements as they go. We will support family daycare through these processes of change. We will strengthen the viability of the family daycare sector moving forward. Over the past 5 years, there's been many legislative changes that has led to widespread confusion throughout the family daycare sector. We know that the compliance measures that were used by the Australian Education and Training Department, those measures were in fact not the framework that they themselves promote. So that led to many of you providers that have lost your that have lost your approvals due to administrative errors and the like, things like educators and families giving false and misleading information that in often many cases providers were simply unable to determine whether or not that information was accurate. So this led to many cases of providers putting in inadvertent errors, and some of those providers were cancelled for an error rate of under 2% of the entire data submission that was submitted to the department. Even though many of these providers had control measures, and they also had reasonable steps in place to monitor educators, so it was actually happening. This has resulted in many families losing their education and care places. In some cases, the children with those educators for a long time, they established relationships, and those families have lost their place. We've also seen many educators out of work. So in both of those instances, it was no fault of their own that families or educators have lost their job for their positions or their places in long daycare. So far to date, family daycare has lost over $1.8 billion in funding. And it was also during this period that many of you providers were assessed by the regulatory authority in your states, and it was determined that some of you, or many of you, were at meeting or exceeding the national quality standards. So that's a testament in itself that we know that providers worked really hard to have their services up to standard under the national quality standards. So for the educators, we know that there are thousands of educators that have been put out of work because of these cancellations. We know that many of these educators come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. We know that they come from linguistically diverse backgrounds, and now they've lost their jobs. Many of those, predominantly women, work tirelessly to gain their qualifications and to start a home business for themselves so that they could support their communities and service their communities and obviously be around for their own families. This has had a catastrophic loss of quality family daycare places for children, and we know that this has also contributed to unemployment in some of those demographics. So, providers, we already know what's happened to many of the providers. Providers have lost their businesses, they've been blacklisted, and they've been declared as not a fit and proper person. So we know that there's been some outcomes that have had some far-reaching effects. In family daycare nationwide, there are thousands of children that attend quality education and care programs daily. They are programs that are delivered by qualified, skilled, responsible educators that children experience. Families are choosing family daycare more and more as opposed to centre-based services, purely for the benefits around flexibility and affordability, but also due to the benefits that family daycare bring. Family daycare brings smaller groups, they bring multi-age grouping, and they bring quality education and care programs to children. So we know that the last thing that anybody in this room wants to see is families being forced into backyard babysitting arrangements where there's nobody watching the children. So Family Daycare United today, we invite you to join us on a journey of making sure that we can withstand these changes that's happening to family daycare. We don't want to sit idly by and watch family daycare be pushed to the side purely based on any kind of government funding or funding cuts. That's definitely not what we want to do. So we're going to hear from some speakers today that will give us some insights into their stories and how the changes have affected them. So we'll be listening to them in a second. So thank you very much again for coming along. I'd like to welcome Carol to the stage. Carol is going to tell us her story. Carol comes with a few different perspectives. She comes with an educator perspective, a coordinator perspective, and also she brings an advocacy role to this today as well. So welcome, Carol. Thank you.
I clearly remember my early years of working in family daycare in Brisbane, the excitement of welcoming new families and their children into my home, purchasing resources and planning activities to fill our days with play and learning. I also remember when our service was chosen to be the pilot service for all of family daycare in Australia for the ELF implementation project, and how proud we all were to trial the new framework and to one day become mentors within the early childhood sector. Family daycare educators and services deserve a proactive peak body that lobbies government on behalf of services, that advocates for them. Let Family Daycare United be your peak body. Give us your email address. We will keep you up to date with what we are doing. Regularly online, I have educators say to leave politics out of early childhood. But sorry, the political machinations of the LNP have got us where we are today, and it doesn't look like changing unless we have a change in government. Family Daycare United has been successful in communicating our concerns with the member for Batman, Jeg Kearney, and ALP candidate for Jaga Kate Waits. And, of course, our fabulous Shadow Minister for Early Childhood Education and Development, the Honourable Amanda Rishworth. Amanda has been instrumental in getting some of these things to gain some momentum. We have their undertaking that with a change of government at the next election, the ALP will work more collaboratively with the sector and support family daycare to do what it does best, which is to provide a quality early childhood experience for all children in Australia. Children have not been the focus of cost cutting and service cancellations. We're hopeful that an elected ALP federal government will reinstate CCS approval to services that have been unfairly treated by the LNP, services that can provide evidence of being unfairly treated. But we need your support to get this across the line. Family daycare is at a crossroads, and it's time to decide which path you're going to follow. Thank you.
My name's Kathy. I was Australia's first professional support consultant to specialise in family daycare and in-home care. That was when I worked for community childcare as part of the professional support program, yet another program that's been taken away from the early childhood sector. Following that, I worked as the educational leader for 3 family daycare services simultaneously, prior to starting my own family daycare service. Now, we're rated as exceeding. That means that every one of my educators is providing exceeding quality service, providing amazing education and care to the children and the families that they care for. And they're doing it on a consistent basis in a reflective manner. But we're running scared. We are terrified. Every time I open my email, I am scared of what's going to come there. We've never had an accusation of doing things wrong. So to open my email every day and go, oh my goodness, what is going to be there today, is terrifying. We've gone from, back in the 1970s, we were effectively backyard care, and then we became a proper service providing care and education to children as family daycare. Then we had the National Quality Framework and the regulations. And since 2013, the number of changes that have come through have just accelerated. And now we have services that are being closed left, right and centre. We have thousands of educators and staff who have lost their jobs. We have many, many more thousands of families who have lost the care. We have entire communities that are suffering because their workforces can't go to work properly because their kids can't get care. It's not good enough. It has to change.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. My name is Chetna Patel and I am a diploma qualified family daycare educator. My background is in accounting, and having attained a Master of Accounting, I have worked in the accounting field for some time. When I decided on a career shift, after looking into my options and working with what I had a passion about, I decided that family daycare allowed me to fulfill several of my goals. Work with the most precious gifts, our children, we have, and finding an environment that is both suitable and rewarding in every respect. With this in mind, I went on a journey of undertaking my studies in the Diploma of Early Childhood Education and Care. When I finally started working as a family daycare educator, I knew that I had made the right choice. And family daycare was everything I had imagined it to be of. Of course, it is not a walk in park, but that is to be expected when you are responsible for helping to shape little lives in your care. I came to appreciate the ability to provide personalized care with the smaller groups, building on children's curiosity and strengths. When the director received a letter from the Department of Education and Training threatening to cancel the approval for all of us to continue working as educators and for the families to no longer receive their subsidies. Of course, our wonderful coordination unit has submitted a response justifying the circumstances and the fact that the human errors with the data input were so minimal that it was unjustifiable to cancel our approval. As I said, I come from the accounting background and can state clearly that all the businesses will have data error. My service had a data error rate significantly less than 1%, which is amazing for all the businesses. To cut a long story short, despite all the efforts and the quality care we were providing to children, the department has decided to cancel our approval. This meant that I was left without an income until I could find another service. The work of my families was also interrupted, as I could not provide the care. Just like all of you, my families and I have financial obligations, but our ability to fulfill them was just ripped out from under us. Therefore, I am here today to demand justice for family daycare. We are quality childcare option for thousands of families across Australia. We should not be penalized to meet the budget cuts of the government. And we should not be targeted by the government. We demand that this is overturned and family daycare is given the respect it deserves. Thank you very much once again for having me here today.
My name is Aisha and I'm here today to support, to add my voice to Family Daycare United as a strong supporter of family daycare. It's my hope that all the cuts of family daycare are overturned, so I'll be able, honestly again, to access the quality family daycare for my daughter, with the hope that I can work full-time and progress my career. Thank you so much for listening.
And now, we're going to hear from Kate Thwaites. She is taking over from Ginny Macklin, and she's been a long time supporter of family daycare. So, as the member for Jaga Jaga, I would like for you to all welcome Kate Thwaites.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here today. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land we're meeting on today, the Wurundjeri people, and pay my respects to elders past and present. I've met a number of the people in this room a couple of months ago when in West Hardsburg I held a forum together with Jed Carney and Amanda Rishworth to talk about early childhood education and what was happening with early childhood education in Australia. And at that meeting, a number of you came and explained to us how concerned you were about what is happening in family daycare here in Australia at the moment under the Liberal government. It was very clear to me how passionate you all are about family daycare and how passionate you all are about providing a really quality service so that families can access affordable, flexible care. And I understand that what is happening under the Liberal government is hurting our community. It does mean that fewer families can access quality, affordable, flexible care. It means that people are losing their livelihoods, and it means that many women are having to give up work opportunities or study opportunities because they can't find accessible care. So this is a really important issue for me, and I want you all to know that. And it's a really important issue for Labor, and that's why it's so great that we have here today Amanda Rishworth, who will be able to talk to you more about Labor's plans for the family daycare sector.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for Family Daycare United for inviting me, but thank you to all of you who've come along. Thank you to those that have shared their story as well about what it means to be an educator, what it means to be a family, accessing family daycare. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we meet and pay respect to elders past and present. And also thank Kate. Kate did host a education forum where some of these issues that were on my desk already really came to life in the human cost that is happening out there in the family daycare sector. And certainly today in the room, as there was at that forum, there is a real a passion from people about the importance of quality early education, a passion for family daycare, and a passion for giving children the best start to life. And of course, that is the important role that family daycare plays in delivering a quality early education. And you are all here that are involved in family daycare, part of our great group of people, educators, that shape our youngest minds. Indeed, 14% of children in early education are in family daycare. And as we've already heard, for many families, particularly those in shift work or in areas that are poorly served by other services, family daycare is vital to ensure that care is able to be accessed. Without it, they wouldn't be able to work, study, and their children wouldn't get access to early education. But for some other families, the family daycare setting of small groups of a range of ages is critically important. And for some cultures, family daycare provides the most culturally appropriate form of early education. But as you've heard, family daycare is under attack by the Liberal government, and that is why we're all here today. Many of you aren't able to do your jobs anymore. Many jobs that you've studied hard for and jobs that you love. Many of you are no longer able to choose to send your children to family daycare. And children are missing out on the benefits of early education. Now, I think it's clear, and you've heard some of the evidence already, this is no accident. It is the result of a series of decisions that have been made by government. For some time now, the family daycare sector has been struggling to adjust to some of the decisions and policy changes made by the government in recent years. And there have been flows of funding cuts. And as was alluded to previously, the first cut that was made by the Liberal government was to abolish the Community Support Program, which supported administrative and regulatory compliance. So it was money that supported family daycare actually meet their obligations. There was $157 million ripped out of the sector. And then of course there was the low benchmark price that has been allocated under the new childcare subsidy, which is set regardless of the time that care is provided. And there's obviously, as you've heard already, compliance and regulatory programs that have been introduced that have impacted many of you. Now, I do want to state for the record that there has been some dodgy and illegal behaviour in the family daycare sector. And the government did have to make changes to drive out frauds and shocks. And there's also been evidence of poor quality providers, and there is no place for poor quality providers in the system. However, new regulations new regulations have been reduced, such as restricting care for family members and restricting payment to children attending secondary school, mandatory ratios and educator caps. And of course, they are all appropriate. But there is a big difference between a robust, evidence-based compliance policy and an arbitrary, secretive budget savings program. And that is what we have. The government has implemented a number of compliance crackdowns, and at last count, according to media releases from the Minister, they have now saved $2.8 billion. In addition, they've stated another savings goal of $1 billion from the sector. None of this money is going back into early education. None of this money is going towards helping family daycare services comply. This money is all going back into general revenue without going to our children. Now, if this budget saving, as I said, was coming from targeting dodgy operators, then of course it would be welcome. But there is growing evidence that the federal government's focus is only on budget savings and has nothing to do with legitimate compliance work. Indeed, as we've heard the Senate estimates a few weeks ago, the Department of Education and Training confirmed that they were cancelling family daycare services to meet their budget savings. Now let me repeat that again. They are cancelling access to CCS not because of dodgy behaviour, but because they needed to meet their budget savings. And indeed, the department confirmed they had to close 150 services. This is what they were told to do, and they cancelled CCS of 150 services. This is clear evidence that their activity when it comes to compliance is more about budget savings than it is about removing poor quality and shonky family daycare services. And the only conclusion you can make is this when you look at the department's behaviour. I have seen letters from the Department of Education and Training that they've been sending to family daycare providers, including those, as we've heard, that are rated as exceeding the national quality standards. These are services that are delivering quality higher than what is expected, and they are getting letters about compliance. Letters that more or less say, we've identified you as being in breach, we're cancelling access to your childcare subsidy, you have 2 weeks to provide us, to prove us that we're wrong, and here's the email address that you can send it to. Of course, that has put so many people in deep stress and agitation. And of course, many of you, and I've already heard some today, will have horror stories. Just one example, my office was contacted by a provider in Victoria who was sanctioned as the department identified sessions provided where educators and children were listed by immigration as being overseas. The provider investigated and found that in each claimed breach, the educator or child flew overseas in the evenings or hours after the close of business. So they weren't engaged in any fraudulent behaviour. In fact, the problem was with the data matching system of the government, not actually the service. And they had to fight and fight and fight to prove that the government had made a mistake. Issuing a notice of intent to impose sanction and giving the service a fortnight to show why they should not be cancelled has created, as we've heard today, extreme distress and uncertainty to providers, educators and families who rely on this service. And we have heard instances, as we've heard today, where some services are being breached for error rates equivalent of 0.1%. I mean, that is not really an error rate when you're looking at 0.1%. Services are being shut even after they put in mitigation plans and processes to stop these types of breaches happening again. And many of you here today are the human cost of the action that this Liberal government has taken. Educators and providers who have studied for years and devoted their careers to early education are now locked out of a livelihood. Families who want to access early learning in smaller, more intimate and family-based settings are now forced with the choice of staying at home or having to go to long day care. And that's if you can access it. So what do these actions from the government demonstrate? Well, I think it shows the government is treating family daycare as an easy place to make budget savings. They're using the behaviour of some bad apples to plug their budget deficit and as a consequence, shutting down a sector that has served the community well for decades. It is clear that the government's compliance program has no interest in supporting high-quality family daycare to meet the government's savings targets. The department now casts a dragnet so wide it is ensnaring honest, quality providers and not providing procedural fairness. This is sending a signal that there is no future for high-quality providers and educators. The raft of rolling regulatory and compliance changes have impacted significantly on legitimate service delivery in family daycare, and the blunt regulatory regime has undermined its service viability and has forced closures that have impacted the lives of educators, children and families, as we've heard today. As we've heard the human impact today, we can also see on a macro level what the impact of these changes have had. It has been a severe drop in family daycare attendance, educator and provider numbers. Between September 2016 and September 2017, the number of children attending family daycare has declined by 13.3%. The number of educators has fell by 15%, and the number of approved providers fell from 914 to 773. Of course, some of these falls will be providers that haven't been doing the right thing, but it is going well beyond this now. It is impacting on children and families, and where are families meant to go when their service that they've relied on closes the doors? 2.8 billion and another billion to come is a very significant amount of money when family daycare only comprises 13.9% of the children in approved care. Now, just to put that in perspective, the government spends $8 billion a year on the childcare subsidy. So to take $3.8 billion out of the sector raises huge questions about what the future holds. In September, I outlined principles that will guide a federal Labor's relationship with family daycare if we are fortunate to win government at the next election. We will take a new approach of compliance in family daycare that is less adversarial and more consultative, whilst maintaining integrity of the compliance program. The first principle is still the most important. We will be vigilant on compliance and we won't accept the dodgy behaviour and poor quality. There will still be a tough cop on the beat. However, we will consult with the sector to measure the impact of these regulatory reforms and work collaboratively to develop a program or regulatory measures that will reduce unnecessary red tape and support ongoing delivery of legitimate services in the sector across Australia. We want to incentivise high quality, sustainable service delivery that supports children and families and put that at the centre. We will adopt a reformed, more targeted, more collaborative approach to compliance, as opposed to the blunt instrument approach that risks legitimate service providers being unfairly caught up in the compliance regime. We will replace the automatic assumption that everyone is doing the wrong thing and every breach is evidence of illegality and criminal intent with a constructive approach that inadvertent, minor administrative errors caused by confusion or lack of support are addressed sensibly. Where a potential breach is identified, the department will work with the provider to clarify the issue. No more letters in the mail with a 2-week deadline to sanction, with a generic email address to appeal to. Shonks will still get found out and kicked out, but we will not throw away the good with the bad. It's about getting honest, quality family daycare providers back to doing what they do best, providing flexible early learning options for families who prefer smaller groups and a natural home-based environment for their children, provided by quality educators. Now, we know that family daycare is often the only option for many families doing shift work and overnight work. And with that in mind, we will review the current framework that supports the provision of non-standard hours care with a view to ensuring that this important offering is accessible, affordable and flexible for thousands of families that need it. So this is our commitment, that we want to see a thriving, high-quality family daycare sector in this country that can continue to work. In contrast, the government does not seem to recognise the importance of early learning and education and doesn't understand the health, the social and economic benefits it brings. Their heart is just not in it. So we will continue to push this issue, but the most important point I would like to leave with you today is that we need to be in government to do this. We need to elect a Labor government to make sure that family daycare is not seen as a second-rate option, that it's not seen as an option that needs to be pushed out of the system, that it is a quality, alternative option for many people who need it. That's my approach. That's how I want to take it, and thank you very much for having me here today.
Hi everybody. Can I just first of all start off by thanking all of you for coming. To be honest, I think that's always one of our concerns. A lot of people have been upset over the years, but I think a lot of us have been afraid because of what was happening to come out and actually have our voices heard and to be seen. Can I also thank, like beyond belief, can I thank Amanda? Amanda's not from Melbourne, for those of you guys who don't know. She actually came here for our event, so please, I'd like to give a round of applause for her. I'd also like to acknowledge, unfortunately she couldn't be here with us, but Jed Carney, who is the Labor member for Batman. That's Preston, Thornbury, that area, you guys, so when it comes to voting, you know where to tick. And Kate White. Kate's from Jagga Jagga, which is all the Heidelberg folks, okay? That hopefully Kate will be doing the Heidelberg folks. I just want to point out two things. number one, what forced us at Family Daycare United to come up and speak up? I think for a really long time we knew that there was something not right about what was happening to family daycare. I mean, unfortunately some of us as well, even within the sector, I think there was a time when we read a lot of the stuff in the media and we were like, yeah, you know, the government's cracking down on all the fraudsters, yeah, you go government. And then, like, they're taking out quality providers left, right and centre. A lot of us did raise it to various bodies that represent us, and we were literally getting the government line. Every single time we would raise our concerns, we were getting back the government line. So ultimately we had a choice. We'd either just sort of sit in a corner amongst ourselves and complain, or we get ourselves active, we get connected and we do something about it. And this is what we're trying to do. So please, I urge all of you guys to join us. Hopefully, with your support, we can make Family Daycare United an advocacy body for our sector because it's really needed at the moment. The other thing that I just want to raise, guys, is a lot of us come from very blunt communities. We also come from very old cultures. Ultimately, guys, we've got a federal election coming up in, well, within 6 months, okay? A lot of us in this room, yes, within our hearts, we are Labor supporters, yes? Which is true. However, unfortunately, we are either not registered to vote, we don't go out to vote, we don't vote properly. I urge you in the next 6 months, if you're not registered to vote, actually you have to by law anyway, vote. It's actually against the law not to vote in Australia, by the way. Get to know your local candidate. Go and talk to everybody, every single chat room, every person that you come across in the community. We need to be active. For those of you guys, a lot of people say, oh, it's one vote, it's not going to make a difference. It actually does. In some of the marginal seats, it's a few hundred votes difference. Your vote will make a difference. You saw what happened in Victoria last weekend, guys. We need the same, not just for family daycare, guys. It's not just family daycare. There are so many issues that affect a lot of the people in this room. First of all, the majority of us here are women. I can guarantee you, if early childhood education was a sector predominantly of men, we would not have these cuts. Absolutely. We've got the banks that are doing, what are they doing in Australia? Forget about being penalised. They've been giving extra bonuses, right? So as women, as people, a lot of us unfortunately from low socioeconomic backgrounds, as early childhood educators, we need to get politically active. We have no choice. And being politically active means you know who to vote for, yeah? So thank you so much for coming today. We're going to open the floor for just a handful of comments. And if you've got any questions, whether to Family Daycare United or to Amanda or Kate, or if you just want to share your experience, but please, guys, keep it limited, yeah? We've all had bad experiences. All of us in this room have a story to tell, okay? But it's just keep it short if you could, thank you. Can everybody, if you want to have a say, please come up to Jodie here. She's got the microphone. Feel free to come up.
My name is Seni Ajayi, and my story is very brief or a bit long. I'll cut it short. I was an educator, love looking after the children, because I know how much investment we could make into those children, we could make into them to make them a better person for the future. Some of us are coming from, African, where you get discipline, you get talk and all that. So we lived in Australia, now we know how the culture is. And I think training starts from home, not from school. So I was opportune to be able to look after the children, which I loved so very much. However, I was a nurse. I was a nurse manager. I finished my degree, Bachelor of Nursing, worked for many years, for over 16 years, and became an educator because of my love for it. Now, after so many years of educating, I thought, anyway, the parents of children actually advised me, please start a skill. You're doing so well. We love the way you're teaching our children and teaching us, the parents, as well. So they wanted me to start business for family daycare. That's how I got into it. Left my nursing, went and did my certificate 3 from after my degree, did my diploma of early childhood education and care, and then I started my business as a carer, as a coordinator. I worked tirelessly. I've never seen the amount of work I worked. In fact, my family thought I was crazy. What are you doing? As a nurse manager, you left everything, and I loved it. I had very harmful educators. I never exceeded 15 educators for 3 years that I ran. 15 educators. Just want to mentor these 15 educators and then they can mentor their children. I was very, very passionate. We had a lot of staff. I mean, with 15 educators, you don't want to know how many staff I still have. Even. So sometimes, fortunately, my husband owns a company, Mega Lines Insurance. If you with Mega Lines, that's my husband's company. So I will pay me Mega Lines to pay my staff to look after my family. They get crazy. So the family, the department got this letter of intention to cancel. Like, are you kidding me? For flimsy excuses. Some of the excuses they said it was some children were at home when they were meant to be at school. And this time it was like curriculum days. The children were not meant to be at school. It was their curriculum days. All these flimsy excuses, I wrote to them. They told me to write a letter, internal review, which I did. And the internal review, you know what? Their offices next door to each other. So I believe that they just treat us like a piece of nonsense. And they came back and said, no, our intentions that we want to stop. It just bothers me so much because I think the government are not interested in our lives, not the lives of our children, not even the future of this country. The way they're going is just going to be a very nightmare for the future of Australia, because if they want these children to have a quality care and the parents, like this, my beautiful sister Sumaya's mom, she's finished her degree, she's working for the country because of family care.
The thing that concerns me the most at what is happening in family daycare was exactly what was happening in registered training organisations a few years ago. And there were international students being ripped off for suicides, there were whole sort of ugly things happening. And they were meant to happen. But I met a lady called Susie Gass at the age, and Susie said, I'll tell you a story. Now with Susie, I set up AusNet, and we ended up, I was asked on television, how many of these shonky training organisations there are, and I said, about 10%. We ended up, everybody tried to get rid of us, but we ended up with a Canberra taking notice, having competitions, and they said, you were wrong with 10%, it was 20%, and it's still going on. Now, I can offer, and I'm not after a job, as I said, I'm a grandfather, I'm retired and too tired, but I would be quite happy to work with Family Daycare United for your voice to make it heard. Here today, let's all stand up together and let's all tell our stories together. One stick is easy to break, a bundle of sticks harder. A bonfire of sticks, nobody's going to break it. So my question isn't to any one person here, would you like to join up and become part of that bonfire for our children, which are the leaders of the future?
My background is similar to a lot of yours, socio-economically. I come from a very industrialised city, and I know that when we band together and work together, we get things done. It's no point just getting angry, we need to get organised. So I'm very supportive of this initiative. My comment though is to support Sister Fraduna's comment about voting. Last weekend, I was fortunate enough to be involved with the process, and I was fortunate enough to be what we call a scrutineer. A scrutineer, after you vote, the scrutineers, we stand there and make sure that the votes are counted correctly and they go on the right pile. As was mentioned, some seats come and go on 100 votes. What I just want to say is, what breaks my heart is when we have informal votes. Sometimes people just don't care, they don't like it. What breaks my heart is when I can see that the person intended to vote, but they haven't done it correctly. Instead of numbering all the boxes, they've ticked or maybe they put 2 or 3 numbers. So please, when voting comes, pay attention. Don't just turn up. You turn up, you want your voice heard, you have to do it the formal way. So please.
I believe families have a choice to where they want their children to be kept for family daycare offering parents more flexibility than center-based long daycare. Because educators work from home, they are able to offer different working and care hours that suit families' different needs. Because it is a homely, comfortable environment, parents don't feel as guilty when they are required to work long hours and have their child in care. They feel that they are leaving their child or children with a trusted friend, not an institution. Or have a question, if I can be at home, who will be home with my child? Gladly, they can be home with their educators. They get comfortable from knowing that the small group and the comfortable space wouldn't be overstimulated their child or children over the course of the day, particularly if parents have to work several days in a row. Overstimulated children can be quite a handful for parents. The relationship that the parents have with you as an educator means that they feel that they have someone with great experience and knowledge. They have those difficult parenting questions too. You can be a great comfort to a parent. Some educators may take their children on excursion and regular outing outside their home, so the children get a greater variety of experiences to learn from, and parents know that their child is getting as much wider experience. Like a long daycare, parents still receive their childcare rebate and their childcare benefit from the government. Parents can be very nervous about putting their children in a care, particularly if it's the first time.